Hi everyone, my name is Toss Edwards. Welcome back to Tom Grant Guitars, and welcome to the second part in this series on building an electric guitar for the Great Guitar Build-Off. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the guitar neck. This is a single piece of mahogany with a rosewood fingerboard. So stick around, and I'll show you how it was done. I'm starting out with a finished shot of the neck, just so you have an idea of where this build is going to be headed. This isn't the best way to lay out a fingerboard. Normally, you want to always measure your frets from the nut, because if you're measuring fret to fret here, like I am, any mistake that you make is going to be compounded to each fret, instead of only being isolated to a single fret when you measure from the nut. Normally, I buy my fingerboards pre-slotted, so this isn't an issue. But for this video and for the competition, I wanted to lay it all out by hand so that you could see what I was doing and how it works. And this method does work. You just have to be really careful. But there's a whole lot of things in building a guitar that you have to be really careful about. So it worked out fine. There's no issues. I'm showing mainly the interesting parts of this build, but in reality, and in real time, most of guitar making is sanding, and sanding, and sanding, and then some more sanding, and then you think you're done sanding, and then you have to do more sanding, and more sanding, and then even more sanding. Here you can see I'm marking with white pencil just the low spots so that I can see exactly how far I need to go with this sanding block so that I can get a smooth surface finish on the fingerboard. This guitar is getting a bound fingerboard, which I'll talk a little bit more about when we come to fretting. But basically what that means is I'm going to wrap the perimeter of the fingerboard in a thin strip of wood. So what I'm doing here is using a hot iron and a little bit of steam to bend this thin strip so that it matches the curved contour that I cut on the end of the fingerboard. In the overall design of this guitar, I wanted to highlight the wood figure and just the beauty of the natural wood over on the guitar, so I'm keeping the fingerboard inlays and all the other decorations fairly simple. So the only inlay that's actually going on this fingerboard is this block that I'm going to inlay into the 12th fret. Hey look, it's more sanding. I've drilled 2 holes into the neck, and I'm going to put pins in those holes that are going to index into holes in the 2nd and the 19th fret of the fingerboard, so that once the glue is on, I can line up those holes, put in the pins, and everything is going to line up perfectly. I don't have to worry about the parts moving around as I apply clamping pressure. There are a lot of different ways to carve a guitar neck. I know a lot of people here on YouTube like to use the method where you carve each end of the neck to the exact proportions that you want, and then you cut out everything in the middle. That's a perfectly fine way to do it. I'm using the facet method, where you basically just keep making smaller and smaller facets until you've got a rounded surface. There's just so many ways to do this with many things in guitar making. There's no one set way that's best. Depending on the tools you're using, depending on your design, you just find what works best for you and you do it. Remember when I said this guitar had a bound fingerboard? Well, that creates a problem when we go to install frets, because frets are roughly T-shaped, or like the cross-section of a mushroom. There's a little barb that sticks down into the fret slot. But the binding gets in the way of that barb, so we have to cut off the barb but leave the top part of the fret so that we can still play the strings on them. And that's what this little nipper does. It cuts off just the barb. Unfortunately, it doesn't cut it off super cleanly, so we then have to go back in with a tiny file and flatten the underside so that it sits flush with the surface of the fingerboard. You have to do this on each side of the fret. This guitar has 21 frets, so that's a lot of filing to do over the course of the guitar. Now this guitar neck is far from finished. There's a lot of little details, there's fretwork, there's finish sanding, but for the most part, I'm calling it finished for now. I'll cover that in another video. But this is basically what the finished product is going to look like. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you sticking with me for this far. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see in the upcoming videos, and I'll try to incorporate it if I can. Thanks for watching.
Okay. Ta-da.